Hi guys, this is Shinigami Scale. In today's video we will be comparing power levels of Ichigo and his opponents from Karakura Town saga. You can also expect a few spoilers about Ichigo's powers in the 1000-year Blood War arc, so be alerted. With that said, let's begin.
なるほど。この程度のレベルについてこられるようになったことがよほど気分がいいらしいな。
Once that the main plot continues and fake Karakura Town arc begins, the first battle that we see is Ichigo against Ulquiorra. In the beginning of the battle, Ichigo is trying to compete with Ulquiorra using only his Bankai powers, which proves to be a very difficult challenge. Even though his Bankai powers have also increased compared to the last encounter they had, in which Ulquiorra thoroughly decimated Ichigo, he still is not at the level in which he could compete with Ulquiorra in his base form. With that said, Ulquiorra takes this one low difficulty.
Ulquiorra, 行くぜ。これがてめえの見たがってた。愚かだ。
After being brought to the verge of death previous time by Ulquiorra, Ichigo's hollow powers have drastically increased and he was able to defeat Grimmjow in their previous battle. In the previous encounter with Ulquiorra, Ichigo in his hollow form has fired Getsuga Tensho at him, but he was able to block it with his bare hands. However, this time around things are much different. From the very start, Ichigo in his hollow form is able to overpower Ulquiorra and actually to dent his Zanpakuto. Ulquiorra fired a Zero at Ichigo, but Ichigo is able to block it with his Tensa Zangetsu. These two feats are indicative enough that Ulquiorra in his base form cannot defeat Ichigo in his holofied version.
Tozase, Murushierago.
As Ulquiorra himself mentions, there are two things that are forbidden within Las Noches, that is the release of Gran Rey Zero, the Espada exclusive Zero, and using Resurrection for Espada number 4 and higher. Ulquiorra helps us understand why this is the case very quickly with his absolutely brutal display of power, in which he nearly decapitates Ichigo in his first attack, and the only thing that actually saved Ichigo was him releasing his Getsuga Tensho. After he uses his Resurrection Murcielago, Ulquiorra becomes too much for Ichigo even in his Hollow 5 form to handle, and Ulquiorra is much stronger and faster than Ichigo in this form, and once that he uses his Zero Oscuras, he just blows Ichigo away. In my personal opinion, Ichigo doesn't stand a chance in this particular battle.
知らんなら教えてやる。これが真の絶望の姿だ。レスレクシオン、セグンダエタパ。
The existing difference in power only increases with Ulquiorra's second resurrection, the Resurrección Segunda Etapa, and in this form, Ulquiorra is much faster and stronger than in his previous one. What is also very important to mention about Ulquiorra's powers, and is additionally pointed out in this form, is his high-speed regeneration ability. This ability is something that most Arankars give up in order to gain greater power, but Ulquiorra has retained it, and this is very powerful ability to have in battle, especially against a close power opponents. In this form, Ulquiorra can use another special ability called Lanza del Rampago, and this ability is much stronger than Zero Oscuras. Now, even though Yammy is Espada Zero, which would basically make him the strongest Espada, We also have to take into consideration that Aizen has never seen this form of Ulquiorra, and I am pretty sure that if he did, Ulquiorra would be the Zero Espada. Take into calculation the fight he put up against full hollow form Ichigo, and I don't see any Espada being ranked higher than him in terms of power.
立て立て俺が守る
All who read the Thousand-Year Blood War arc have learned that the old man Zangetsu, as he used to be known, is actually representation of Ichigo's Quincy powers. And one of the main things that he has been doing since the beginning of the Bleach series is suppressing Ichigo's Hollow and Shinigami powers. Now at the moment that Ulquiorra pierced Ichigo's body and brought him closest to the death as it was possible, at that point in time he was no longer able to contain his hollow powers, and Ichigo for the first time has showcased his full hollow form. Without getting into origins of Ichigo's powers, what is very important to be mentioned here is the fact that Ichigo's Hollow and Shinigami powers are connected. Due to these facts, and also due to the fact that Ichigo's powers dramatically increase once that he enters his merged Hollow form in the Thousand-Year Blood War arc. It is my personal opinion that full Hollow Ichigo powers are transcendent. Now, getting into this battle, there is not much to say about the difference in strength of these characters. Full Hollow Ichigo with his Zero is able to repel Zero Oscuras from Ulquiorra and is able to avoid Ulquiorra's Pesquisa, Ulquiorra's ability to sense spirit energy. He's pretty much dominating Ulquiorra the entire battle, and the big finish is actually him being able to grab Ranza de la Rampago with his bare hands, which again, in my personal opinion, showcases the transcendent difference in power, where he basically negated all the damage and just blocked the attack with one hand. In this particular battle, Ulquiorra stands no chance against full hollow form of Ichigo.
笑わせんな打ち切れろいや
After the battle against Ulquiorra, Ichigo's powers dramatically increase compared to his previous versions. Now, as Ichigo explains, his Shuhakusho in his Bankai form represents the spiritual energy that he has left and is currently able to use. At only 40% he was able to block attacks from Yammy in his resurrection form. Now, Yammy's resurrection, the Resurrection era, is very special, and essentially the angrier Yammy gets, he becomes bigger and stronger. He's also the only Espada whose rank changes once that he uses his resurrection. In this particular situation, if Ichigo was to battle Yammy with only 40% of his power, I believe that Yammy would be the one to claim victory, because his powers keep on growing the angrier he gets. Although if Ichigo's hollow form was to reappear again, I see Yammy having absolutely zero chance in that kind of battle. If Ichigo was to battle Yammy with his full power in this form, I do not see Yammy having a chance in this battle and Ichigo winning with very low difficulty.
俺とてめえの二人だけなら力でてめえを叩き潰せる
After releasing his hollow powers in the previous battle against Ulquiorra, Ichigo now has a mask with different markings, and Ichigo in this form is much more powerful than before. Now, even though he was barely able to cut Yammy's neck in this particular form, we have to take into consideration that Ichigo at this point in time was around 40 to 50% of his power. Again, similar opinion as for the previous battle. If Ichigo was to fight Yammy in this state, Yammy would keep on getting angrier and stronger. And again, I would give a small advantage to Yammy in this battle, although if he was to win, it would be with extreme difficulty. If Ichigo was to battle Yammy with his full power in this form, Yammy would stand absolutely zero chance in this particular battle. So Ichigo would take victory, no difficulty. In the first encounter between Sasuke Aizen and Kurosaki Ichigo in fake Karakura Town arc, the difference between their power levels is still pretty big, and despite his best efforts, Ichigo is still not able to lay a finger on Aizen. In fact, during this battle, Aizen is able to put his hand on Ichigo's chest without Ichigo even realizing that Aizen moved towards him, which displays the absurd power that Aizen has. At this point in time, Aizen is stronger than all other captains except Yamamoto Genryusai, and battling Ichigo here would be a task with very low difficulty for Aizen.
これからゆっくりと信じる神が誰なのか教えよう。信じるのはそれからだ。
Once that Ichigo uses his hollow mask, his chances of battling Aizen do improve, however not enough. In one particular moment during the battle, he is able to seriously wound Aizen when he catches him off guard. However, the moment Aizen is aware of Ichigo's movement, Ichigo no longer can keep up with him. I would also like to point out that for Aizen in these comparisons, I'm not calculating the effect of Kyoka Suigetsu, as Ichigo hasn't seen its release and therefore cannot be affected by its powers, as well as Hokyuku's abilities, because here it was yet to be revealed that Aizen has fused with it. In any case, Aizen wins, very low difficulty.
Dangai 神死にの槍
Battle between Ichigo and Ichimaru Gin is very interesting, as here we can see for the first time the release of Gin's Bankai Kamishini no Yari. His Bankai gives his Zanpakuto the ability to extend even longer than in his Shikai form, but what is truly much more dangerous is his retraction speed, which makes Kamishini no Yari the fastest Zanpakuto. Once that he adopts a stance where he firmly grips his blade, he can use abilities Buto and Buto Engine, which basically repeat the action of extending and subsequently contracting the blade of Kamishini no Yari, which is extremely dangerous due to his Zanpakuto speed. However, we learn about the most dangerous ability of Gin's Bankai in the following battle against Aizen Sasuke. Basically, inside the blade there is a deadly poison that dissolves and breaks down cells of the target. So essentially, anyone who gets stabbed by his Bankai can basically be considered dead. This combination of abilities makes Ichimaru Gin one of the strongest captains, and I see him defeating Ichigo in this battle. With his hollow mask, Ichigo has much higher chances to win this battle, and personally I believe that he has the raw strength and speed to overpower Gin in this form. However, as I previously stated, Gin requires only one shot to win this battle, so I will give a slight higher chance to Ichimaru, although this battle can go either way. Now, one of the most divisive topics in Bleach power scaling are the powers of final Getsuga Tensho and true Shikai Ichigo, so I would like to share my opinion before explaining the next battle. So let's talk first about the final Getsuga Tensho. Final Getsuga Tensho is a Tensa Zangetsu ultimate technique, which is Shinigami in origin, as Ishin states that his Zanpakuto Engetsu has this ability as well, which essentially combines Ichigo's and Zangetsu's powers. Now, there are two main schools of thought on this topic, that it's either a power amplifier that used all of the powers that Quincy's side of powers wasn't able to suppress previously, or that it draws all the powers from Zanpakuto into a form which in Ichigo's case means from his pseudo Zanpakuto, consisting of only Hollow and Shinigami powers. There is also a third theory out there that this form included Quincy powers as well, but after Yuha's statement that Ichigo's Quincy powers were dormant and Old Man Zangetsu's statement that he was constantly suppressing Ichigo's power, that doesn't seem as likely scenario. So I personally believe that using his pseudo Zanpakuto as a channeling medium in his final Getsuga Tensho form, Ichigo has temporarily drawn all of his Shinigami and Hollow powers to use them in his final battle against Aizen. Now, Aizen in his transcendent form has already become incredibly powerful. Remember that in his Chrysalis form already the power difference is so vast that Urahara, Yoruichi, Ishin weren't able to sense his Reiatsu at all. In his post-Chrysalis form, Aizen was able to destroy Kototsu or Sweeper with his spiritual pressure alone, which showcases how terrifying his powers truly have become. After Gin's betrayal, Aizen is on the verge of death, which triggers another transformation by Hokyoku, and in this form known as Transcendent Aizen, he claims that he has finally become a true transcendent being. This is also confirmed in the Bleach data book Unmasked, where it's stated that Aizen becomes a replacement for Soul King to create a new world. Now, a lot of people consider Dangai Ichigo a separate form from his final Getsuga Tensho technique. However, I believe that this is actually the first part of the final Getsuga Tensho technique, because Ichigo's hand is combined with his Zanpakuto, which represents the first step towards Ichigo becoming Getsuga himself. In this encounter, Ichigo proves how much more powerful than Aizen he has become. At the beginning of the battle, Ichigo grabs Aizen by his head and drags him a huge distance without Aizen being able to do anything about it. Ichigo has become so powerful that when he clashes sword with Aizen, his power blows up mountains that surround them. His spiritual pressure was so much higher than Transcendent Aizen's that not only Aizen wasn't able to sense him, but Dangai Ichigo wasn't affected by Hado 90 Kurohitsugi and broke out of it with his bare hands. The difference in power in this battle is evident, and if it was a normal opponent that Ichigo was fighting, this would be a low difficulty win. However, in this scenario we must consider the true source of Aizen's power, and that is Hokyoku. Knowing the fact that Aizen in his god form was able to survive a final Getsuga Tensho Mugetsu, I would have to give a higher chance for victory to Aizen. Once that Aizen realizes that he cannot defeat Ichigo in his transcended form, Hokyoku provides him with another transformation and he reaches the form which we now know as God form Aizen. In the data book Unmasked, it is stated that this final form surpassed even the state of God and was even devilish. After evolving into a new form, Aizen is able to use Fragor ability, with which he was able to heavily damage Ichigo's left arm, while in his previous form he wasn't able to harm Ichigo at all. This showcases that he was able to close a lot of power difference between him and Dangai Ichigo, although not enough to be able to sense his power level. Ichigo in this form is once again much more powerful than Aizen and is able to escape from his grip with a single swing of his sword. Again, when talking about chances of victory, we must take Hokyoku into consideration as in the previous battle, and in my personal opinion, chances are once again in the corner of God Aizen, although with extreme difficulty and very high price to pay.
最後の月牙天章ってのは俺自身が月牙になることだ。
I usually do not analyze the powers of individual special attacks, but final Getsuga Tensho Mugetsu attack requires a change in Ichigo's form, so it does count as an exception. In the last stage of the final Getsuga Tensho technique, Ichigo himself becomes Getsuga. With his special attack called Mugetsu, he is able to fire all of his Shinigami and Hollow powers in one shot, creating a horrifying amount of damage as he was able to disintegrate God Aizen with it. The difference between their powers is so vast that if not for Hokyoku, Ichigo would have won. In the end, despite all this overwhelming power, Hokyoku would again be the centerpiece in this battle, and in the end Aizen would survive the blast from Ichigo's Mugetsu and finish him off after that. Aizen wins with extreme difficulty and heavy toll on his powers. That's it for this video. Be sure to check out other videos as well, and if you like and enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel so that you can get notifications for the videos on a weekly basis. Till the next one, bye!